We're going to talk about the ketogenic diet now. So the ketogenic diet is going skyrocketing in popularity right now. And it's because the ketogenic diet is kind of like magic for people who need to lose weight, which we can be honest is honestly most adults in the United States could you lose some weight. It suppresses hunger. And it makes it so that you're in fat burning mode all the time. Where typically when you're losing weight by calorie restriction, which losing weight on the ketogenic diet does involve calorie restriction as well. And when your body and brain is running on carbs and not fat, then your body kind of has to transition over into burning fat. And so this is called ketosis, and this is something that most people, even if you just don't eat for 12 hours like you're sleeping, your body will dip into ketosis a little bit, and then you will eat, and your body is then back into burning carbs instead of fat. So your body can go back and forth. In the ketogenic diet, we are going over to fat burning mode all the time on purpose. And so this has a few different awesome side effects. Is first, the not being hungry all the time. Second is sugar cravings are either super lowered or they're pretty much gone. Third is it can help with tons of mental health conditions. And so it can help with things like traumatic brain injury. It can help with things like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, even Alzheimer's is shown to respond in some cases to the ketogenic diet. And so I did this with my daughter for autism a long time ago. And we'll talk about that in another video, how the ketogenic diet or ketogenic version of the GAPS diet is something that can help with severe and chronic mental health disorders. And so this is, a lot of people will start the ketogenic diet for weight loss, and then they find that their anxiety is reduced, their depression is reduced, their sugar cravings are way reduced, and they just find this is a much easier way to live. So there are some things that you want to keep in mind when you're on the ketogenic diet, and that is when we're in fat burning mode and our body is running off of ketones and then later fat adapted, so your body's just running off of fat without having to run off the ketones. Very technical stuff we'll talk about in another video. Your body requires more electrolytes, specifically magnesium, potassium, sodium, and more water. And so I'm someone that's not a huge water drinker. I feel fine not drinking water when I'm eating carbs and carbohydrate. So carbohydrates have more water in them. And so your body's kind of extracting that water out of it. When you're eating the ketogenic diet, in order for your body to be burning the fat and not the carbs, you do need to drink more water. That's something that's important. And then you need the electrolytes. And so I make like a keto aid, which is like a dry margarita, as a friend just called it, is just water. And then I put my salts in it, which is magnesium, sodium, which is just sea salt, and then potassium chloride, which is like potassium salt. And I will link below to more information on electrolytes and the ketogenic diet. That is something that I want to caution you. You do need to learn about electrolytes, but you could learn about them in probably 45 minutes or half an hour today, and you can get started. And that's another great thing about the ketogenic diet is you can start anytime. You don't have to wait to the beginning of the month. I suppose this is true with all stuff. But you don't really have to clean out your fridge, because if you can just kind of white knuckle through the first 3 or 5 days, your sugar cravings are gonna go. So like I've got crackers in the fridge, I've got ice cream for the kids, I've got tons of fruit for the kids. I don't have my kids eating the ketogenic diet, which I don't think it's bad if you do have your children on the ketogenic diet, but it's gonna be kind of rough on them if they're going in and out and off and on until their body gets used to being fat adapted really quickly. So anyways, I do give my kids carbs, fruit, healthy carbs is something that's good. But if you are in ketosis and you are on the ketogenic diet, you eat no sugars, even natural sugars from fruit or honey. You eat no starches, even starches from like potatoes, and you eat no grains. So what you're doing with the ketogenic diet is keeping your carb counts under 20 grams or 30 grams a day. And there's different carb counters and different body weight counters and whatever that you can keep track of your macros. So by macros, we mean macronutrients, not micronutrients, which are like vitamins and minerals, but macronutrients are your fat, protein, and carbohydrates. And so the really important thing for the ketogenic diet is to keep your carbohydrates down around or below 20 grams a day. And so that's very, very low carb. And there's a little bit of carbs in some of the so-called keto foods. And so that's why you have to keep track. And so this can be a little bit tedious at first, but it's also really interesting. And you'll kind of find that since you're not hungry all the time, you're not eating all the time. And so if you only eat 2 meals a day, skipping breakfast is pretty common on the ketogenic diet because we are fat adapted. So we're able to pull from our body fat just fine. And it doesn't really make a difference to our body whether we're eating our body fat or we are eating breakfast. So intermittent fasting is common with the ketogenic diet. And then you're just gonna wanna go into MyFitnessPal. It's just a free app, and you can put in your stuff. And it's a little complicated at first. I recommend using a food scale because it's easy to super overestimate. 200 calories with a couple grams of carbohydrates of almonds is just like what fits down in the bottom of a sandwich bag. It's like you might think 200 calories of almonds is like a big handful, and it's not. That's going to be like 400 calories. So using a food scale, which I do have another video on how to use a food scale, it's a lot less math than you're probably anticipating, is super important when you first start the ketogenic diet. Counting your carbohydrates. Always you have to count your carbohydrates. If you want to be technical, you can count your calories, your protein, and your fats as well. You want to keep moderate protein, so to figure out your protein, there's keto calculators, and I'll link to a couple down below the video. To keep your protein healthy for you, you want to have about 1 gram or 0.75 grams per lean body mass. And so women especially, we're just gonna hold on to more fat, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a judgment thing. We need more fat on our body, but lean mass is like your muscles and your skeletal system that does not have that fat on it. So my lean body mass is 114, which I am not 114 pounds. And so you want to have a certain amount of protein per that lean body mass. And so there's keto calculators that can calculate that for you, and then you can kind of see where you're hitting, and that's called fitting your macros or meeting your macros. And so you want to eat. Protein is kind of like a goal, you're trying to get that much protein per pound of lean body mass. Fat is, you can just eat fat until you're full. So some of the things that I really like to eat on the ketogenic diet are nuts are delicious, but they're super easy to go overboard on. Dairy, also delicious, also easy to go overboard on. And there is a little bit of carbohydrates in dairy. We use heavy whipping cream because it does contain less carbohydrates than milk. And then the soft cheeses like brie. If you look at my Instagram, you can see sort of what I eat, and I'll put some of the pictures of my meals. They're not super beautiful or anything. Green leafy vegetables are low in carbohydrates. And so the carbohydrates, that count that I said is 20 to 30, is going to be net carbs. And so when you are counting your carbs, you get to subtract out fiber. So if your total carbohydrate, for lettuce, for 4 cups of lettuce, it's something like 9 grams of carbohydrate, but 6 of those grams is fiber. So you subtract the fiber from the total grams of carbohydrate, and it's just 3 net carbs. And so that 3 obviously fits really well into your 20 that you can have a day. So you can have a big old salad. I'll do a big old salad with some cucumber, which is another low carbohydrate vegetable, with some cucumber, and then some I'll just open up a can of smoked salmon or some other smoked sardines, some other fish, and just put that on top of my salad, a few artichoke hearts, and then a couple chopped walnuts or macadamia nuts. And I make my own dressings out of avocado oil, mayonnaise, and then I just add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to it. So it's delicious stuff. I will link to pre-made meal plans if you don't want to add up all of the carbohydrates and everything. You just want to be told what to eat. I will link to some pre-made meal plans down below the video, and that can help you get started. If you want to click over there, I'd love to have you subscribe, and I will link to some other videos that I think you will find helpful and useful. And always, I love to hear from you in the comments, so drop me a comment below. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.